So we're going to go for it despite the lack of turnout today, despite the 5 drops of rain that we had outside. Okay, so you got 2 handouts today. The first is your next assignment. I give this to you early because it's similar to what we're doing over the next 4 exercises in class, so it's a good time to kind of work in conjunction with the 2. It is not due, however, until Halloween, so you've got some time again. Different than 135, this class you tend to have a much longer period of time to be working on stuff, and you build up skills along the way. You will be creating a skyscraper. You will be rendering that skyscraper. The point, with each assignment that goes on, it's nice to kind of understand why I'm having you do what you're doing. And in this one, it's less about modeling the most crazy building in the world, and it's more about all the environmental settings, the sun system, the background imagery, and all that sort of thing that comes into play. And so for the first time, we'll go kind of more onto the V-Ray side of really how do you create a good environment, how do you make that environment work, what kind of background context can you give, and that sort of thing. So we'll concentrate a lot on that. We actually, next class on Wednesday, we'll start with an actual sun and what the position of the sun is, what the time of day, time of year, and all that sort of thing. So it's moving in that direction. Today we're going to create a basic building. This basic skyscraper building, or maybe it ends up not being so basic, is kind of a precursor. It's the sample file that we'll use for the next several exercises that you'll learn from. The final version that you'll do for assignment 203 is a much taller building. So you have to kind of compensate for that. You have to design around that down the road. I'll show you some examples, of course, as we go forward. But for today, we're going to start with a very basic shape. I'm going to go ahead and open up Rhino and start with this. I do ask that you do 3 different skyscrapers. Part of the reason that I want you to do several different ones is because you will find some will work better for some of the things that we're trying to do and some won't. Specifically the unrolling of surfaces, etc. So now that I have a new Rhino file, I'm going to choose large objects, inches, just like we've been doing. And I'm going to go ahead and start creating a very basic shape. And I can do that in a number of ways. In this case, I'm going to start with a rectangle. I'll start at point 0, 0. And the base of this skyscraper is going to be 100 feet by 200 feet. So I'll say at 100 feet, comma, 200 feet. Maybe not, because I can't type. At 100 feet, 200 feet. There we go. I'm going to zoom selected so I see the whole thing. Zoom selected. There we go. And I'm going to copy this vertically. So I'll type V for vertical by 600 feet, which now gives me the top of my skyscraper. Okay. So now in its most basic form, I could take these 2 pieces, I could loft them together, and I could essentially build a very basic rectangular skyscraper. Okay. I may want a top and a bottom, in which case I could use patch to create that top for right now. We're going to end up creating floors in the skyscraper anyway, so really all we care about is the external part of it. So at this point, maybe I want to vary the shape a little bit so that it's not a basic rectangle. So maybe we'll try, and I'm going to keep doing this over time so that you can see this. Let me copy this one over for another version. And let's take a corner chunk out. Maybe we'll say at, I don't know, 50 feet, comma, 50 feet, something like that. Let me explode this. Get rid of those 2. And then we'll use these to trim that away. We can join these together. And I could take this, copy vertical by 600 feet. And then I could take these 2 and I could loft those together, right? Which creates a little reveal on that corner. Okay. well, maybe that's not quite the full direction that I want. And part of the reason that I'm asking you to iterate today is that I want you to play around with shapes and ideas and that sort of thing so that you don't just end up with a box, right? And you can kind of find something that you're excited to be working with. Okay, so let's say, let me take the curve on the top and the bottom here. I'll copy those over a little bit more. And let's say instead maybe we'll go back like this. And let me join these together. And maybe I want this and this to loft so that I create a little fold that happens over the course of the building. Okay? So you see I'm kind of evolving the shape a little bit. Okay? Maybe I want to take this shape, oops, take this, and maybe I'm on the right track here, but maybe, oops, maybe I just want there to be a little, we'll go over 25 feet. 50 feet, 50 feet, to there. And let me take this. So I'm starting this obviously with a basic curve. Let's take that, and then we'll join this. And we can copy this one, again, vertically by 600 feet. And we could then loft these two together as well. Oops. I must have some overlapping curves. Hold on a second. There it is. There's my problem. One closed curve. Perfect. All right, so let's join. And let me take these. Oh, no, there's one in the back. All right, let's try that one more time. Loft. There we go. Okay. So I end up creating that. Okay, so obviously I can evolve these along the way. But now let's say that I want to spend a little bit more time and I want to make some more transformations to one of these shapes. Right? So let's take this shape, for example, and I'm just going to take the surface itself and we'll copy this over here. And now maybe I want to add a little bit of a twist to this shape, or a bend. Okay, I'm going to do something called a cage edit on this object, and I can access that by typing cage edit, or I can go to, it's under transform, cage editing, cage edit. Okay, and it says select captive object. That means what object do I want to edit? So in this case, I want this object to be edited. I'll go ahead and press enter. Then it asks me to select a control object. The bounding box will be just fine. It's basically a box that goes entirely around my object. Okay, the coordinate system world is the default. Then we get to cage points. Okay, so we have an x point count, a y point count, and a z point count. And then we have an x degree, a y degree, and a z degree. For right now, we're going to start off really simple. And I'll walk you through what these changes really do. Under x point count, we're going to say 2. Under y point count, we're going to say 2. And under z point count, we're going to say 2. Now notice when I did that, and I changed x, y, and z to 2, 2, and 2, the degree changed to 1, 1, and 1 automatically. Okay, so that's fine. We'll stick with that. And I'll go ahead and hit enter. And region to edit global is fine. And you see that I now have a bounding box around my object, and I have little control points on the corners. Okay? I can take these control points, select them, and I could, for example, rotate by maybe 15 degrees, right? And it twists that whole object. Notice, though, that they stay in a straight line during the twist. Okay? So let's take this one again, and I'm going to copy it, and we're going to do the same thing to it with the cage edit. Cage edit, bounding box, world. Okay, so last time I had 2, 2, and 2. Let's go to 3, 3, and 3. Okay, and let's change my degree to 2, 2, and 2. Okay, so we'll go ahead and hit enter. Global. And you see that now I have a lot more points. So here I had just the 4 corners, right? I divided each into 3. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and 3 vertically. Okay? So let's take the top pieces, just like I did last time, and let's rotate them same point by 15 degrees. Okay? So if we look at these, see how on this one they rotated and they were straight? Okay, that's a 1 degree rotation. The 2 degree rotation, we do the same rotation, but the object now curves through the points. Okay? We could smooth it out a bit by rotating this back by 7.5. Right? And it's going to smooth out a bit, but it's still a bit of an arc compared to our perfectly straight line. Okay? But I can also control this. Remember, I can work with just this middle section. And let's go back. I went back to negative 7.5, and I could rotate this whole thing from the middle by negative 7.5. Right? And I can really start to tweak what's happening in this particular shape. Okay? The other thing that I can do is I can take an individual point, select just this point, for example, and I can adjust this point to have part of my building bulge out to the side. Okay? Now, this is easy enough to do, and the renderings will turn out nice, but if I were to try to make this shape, okay, see how it has curvature in 2 directions, there and there? If I went to try to unroll this surface on the outside, kind of like if you try to peel an orange, right? What happens when you try to peel an orange? Right? It splits. Right? You can't fold it flat without it splitting. It's not possible. So the same thing happens here. So a little bit later on in the semester, when we start to do the unrolled surfaces, right, for the assignment, for example, you won't be able to unroll this kind of a surface. So stay away from, for today, you're more than welcome to do this kind of a surface, but when we get to the assignment, you're going to want to stick with a 2 degree curve that doesn't have this kind of 2-dimensional curvature to it. If you end up with a really fancy shape and you accidentally get this kind of curvature, there are ways that I can help you through fixing it, where you can rebuild the shape. Okay? So what I want you to do today is play around with the cage edit tools to see what they do. I should show you an example. Hold on a second. Let me do another cage edit on this one. That's kind of a mixture of the two here. Oops. Bounding box, world. Okay, my point counts here, 3, 3, and 3, but I'm going to change the degree back to 1, 1, and 1. Region to edit global. Okay, so it looks the same. Okay, but in this time, if I were to take these top and rotate, let's go, I'm going to go into the center here. Let's go 15. No, let's do 7 point. Right? You see how they go in a straight line this time, as opposed to curving. So you can create right? A building that has a twist or a kink with straight sides instead of the curving sides. So you've got a lot of flexibility in terms of how you do these transformations. Okay? So let's say that I end up liking this shape, and I want to start working with that as my skyscraper. Okay? So the first thing that I need to do is I need to create a bunch of floors for this building. So I'm going to start with a rectangular plane that is larger than my building. So maybe something like that. Make sure it's larger looking down on it. If we looked in the top view, my plane is larger than any of the sides of it. Okay? So then I'm going to array this shape up every 16 feet because our distance between the floors is 16 feet. But the lobby or ground level is 24 feet. So let me start by copying this vertically 24 feet. So there's our lobby level. Okay. Then I'm going to select this surface, and I'm going to array this surface. Okay. Number in the x direction is going to be 1. Number in the y direction is going to be 1. But the number in the z direction is 37. Okay. I'll hit enter. Then it's going to ask me for z spacing or first reference point. Okay. I know what the spacing is. I know it's 16 feet between the floors. So I'll go ahead and type 16 feet. It gives me a little preview. So I can go ahead and hit enter. And we get surfaces all the way up my building. Okay. Obviously, they extend beyond my surface, my inner surface. So let's go ahead and trim those off. So I'll select this object as my trim. I'll type trim. And we'll start getting rid of the floors. Okay? I can do this in a couple groups. Like that. So let's go ahead and organize a little bit. Let's take this, go into my layers. Let's make a layer called skin. Let's make a layer called floors. And let's make this layer called skyscraper. The skin and the floors should be sub-layers of the skyscraper. Let's change the skin to be on the skin layer. So let me change object layer. There it is. The advantage is now we can turn it off. Let me select all of those floors. Do it this way. Oops. No, I didn't want to split. All right, so there they are. I don't need that control object. Let's put those on the floors layer. Change object layer. Now those are all on the floors layer. Now I need the ceilings as well. So let's go ahead and start with a surface that's larger than my building again. Let's put it on this layer. Change object layer. Oops. And this will be called ceiling. And let's put this onto the skyscraper. Okay. Now, the first one, we're going to copy vertical. And let's go at 20 feet. There we go. And then the ceiling heights, the interior ceiling heights are going to be 10 feet. But notice when I did the math that there's 4 feet. This was 24 feet. There's 4 feet. So if I just do an array every 16 feet again, I'll get the same thing. So we'll array. Number in the x is 1. Number in the y is 1. Number in the z is 37. My spacing is 16 feet again. And there those are. Okay. So once again, let me turn on the skin. Finish. Turn on the skin. Select the skin. And then we'll trim. Perfect. I did end up with 2 on top of each other there. Let's get rid of the bottom here. And so now I have the floors, I have the skin, and I have the ceilings, all as part of this. Okay? Just making sure I do everything that I said I was going to. Okay. I'm going to do one more layer here, and this is for later use. It's going to be called sky curves. And I will select the floors, select objects, the ceilings, select objects, and the skin, select objects. And I'm going to do an intersect, but I want to make sure that my sky curves is selective. And I'll type intersect. And that will then give me a whole bunch of curves that represent the outer floor plate for each floor. Okay? It's just something for later on that can be useful. If you're having trouble trimming, sometimes that's a good strategy, and then you trim from the curves rather than from the surfaces. Okay, so I now have this. I need to do some basic setups for the rendering. Okay, number one, I need a infinite plane underneath. So let's create a layer called environment. Okay, let's create a sublayer for my infinite plane. Let's make it active. And I'm going to add the infinite plane, which is right here. Add V-Ray infinite plane. Should be underneath. It shows up over here. Remember, that's just a representation. It doesn't matter where it shows up. It goes off into infinity. Then we create another layer here for lighting. And I'm going to create a basic directional light. So I'll use the box to guide me here, like that. Make sure it's on the light layer here. The directional light is the invisible one at the end. Go figure. We'll start at this corner. We'll go to that corner so we know it's at a downward angle. We'll go ahead and delete this. And then let's go ahead and assign some materials to this building. So I'm going to open up my V-Ray material editor. I'm going to load some materials. So if I go to my flash drive here, and I go into V-Ray, let's see. The ceiling material is probably like, let's look, interior wall, textured sheetrock white. That'll work. Let me load a material for the floors. Let's use concrete. I'll use a concrete basic. There. And I need some glass for the outer shell. Now the glass isn't going to look very good because we have no environment yet. Okay, this is where we're going. Next class we'll start to add environment and the glass will start to look better. So for right now, we'll go ahead and load a material. And under glass, I think we have a glass skyscraper here. We use that. It's just a reflective glass. You can see it looks like that. Okay, so let's assign each of these materials to a layer over here. Remember, I spent time organizing my layers. It makes assigning the materials easy. The skyscraper glass needs to be applied to the skin layer. The concrete needs to apply to the floors. Now, because we're rendering from far away, I'm going to turn off the bump map on the concrete because you're never going to see any of that texture. So we'll leave it just as a photo. It'll speed up the rendering time. Then let's look at the textured sheetrock here, and I'm going to apply material again to layer, and we'll do it to the ceiling. Okay, and again, I'll turn off the bump map for that because you're never going to see that either. Okay, so I'm trying to be intelligent about how I'm using the materials. Okay, if I was doing a close-up, if I was doing an interior rendering, then it would matter. But I'm just doing an exterior rendering for today. Okay, so those are in. Let's zoom in a bit and take a look at the skyscraper. Okay, under V-Ray options, I am going to go to my output drawer. And I'm going to get the view aspect so it matches what I'm looking at. And then we can up the size a little bit, maybe something like that. And then let's go ahead and give it a render and see what happens. Oops, hold on a second. Here, options. Get the view aspect, lock it. There we go. So as I said before, not exactly the most attractive rendering in the world, right? But once we start to have some environment, it will be. So you have to be patient with that, and then we'll move in that direction. Okay? I do want you to create at least 3 skyscrapers today. If you want to do more power to you, right? The more you have to choose from down the road, the better it's going to look. Next class, we're going to take this skyscraper as a block, and we're going to bring it into the city of San Francisco, right? Which gives us context, and then we'll assign a sun and do some of the environmental settings. Are there any questions about this? Right? You should have some extra time today. Use it. Finish up your laser cut file. Your laser cut digital file, the AutoCAD file for your assignment 202 is due next class. Should be posted. Right? I think the handout actually said it was due today. Right? I didn't put it on the calendar. I didn't do that for my last class either. So if you already did it, great. If you didn't, you get a reprieve. But it is due. You just have to post the AutoCAD file. The what? The final model is, but the digital file, the one that you have to laser cut, you have to post that DWG today or by Wednesday. The reason that I ask you to do that is that way you're officially done with the laser cut file, and then you can go have it cut. Okay? So you should be ready, and I'm trying to make sure everybody's ready. There's no last minute push. Okay? So the overall model is due on Monday the 17th, so you still have plenty of time to glue the model together. Okay? Given how many people are missing today, I think it might be better if I waited to glue the model together until Wednesday, if that works for you guys. Does that seem reasonable? Okay? So we'll do that on Wednesday. Okay, that's good. That is very good. I was hoping that they did. They were supposed to do that a few weeks ago, but let's hope that it's all up. If there's problems getting time on the laser cutter, let me know, and we'll figure something out, because it should be staffed at this point in the semester. It should be.
Yeah,
so
we just got email saying, hey, you're on the schedule.
Okay. Okay, good.